So we're still waiting for the stairs, and she said, honestly, I have no way to inform you of how long it's gonna take, so please just be patient and I'll let you know when we're ready to begin. It is Sunday, December 18th, 2022, and on this week's edition of Sunday Sofa Time, we're talking about airport travel
chaos.
I just got back here to Hamburg yesterday, and I got back to Hamburg much later than I thought I was going to be because of the airport travel chaos that I'm going to be talking about in this video. And I feel like I want to kind of disclaimer this because I can imagine that a lot of people who come to watch Sofatime, they're watching to like learn about a specific thing, some news event, some ship, some travel destination or something like that. And this is not going to be one of those videos. This is a story time video, okay? Where I'm going to be telling you about all the things that happened to me yesterday in this 9 hours of delay and booking and rebooking and lines and all that. I just want to tell you about all these things that happened yesterday. Some of you are going to find that interesting and some of you are not. And if you already know that that doesn't sound interesting to you, then it's probably better to just go watch another video so that you don't waste 20 minutes or however long this is going to be watching a video about something you don't want to see. That's just your warning in advance, okay? And maybe learning about why I did the things that I did at the times that I did and the situations I was in as somebody who travels maybe a little bit more than the average person. Maybe somehow that will help you in some future situation.
How long do we gotta stay here for people we don't know in one line?
All right, on to the story. I was visiting friends down outside of Munich, Germany. This is actually Kali, my bodyguard. So if you've read the book, Getting Stitches on a Cruise Ship, which is available on Amazon now, you will know a little bit more about who this person is and what we've been through together. Gosh, I have to stop talking about the book. So I was visiting him and his family and had a great time just hanging out, doing some Christmassy things, went to a Christmas concert, went to the big thermal spa there, got a nice massage. It was a good visit. And I wanted to be home by, I think it was like 10:15 in the morning yesterday, which was Friday. Usually, Friday afternoon is the afternoon where I record Sunday Sofa Time, and then I start editing it Friday night and usually finish it sometime on Saturday morning. So that's like kind of my work schedule as far as Sunday Sofa Time goes. And I couldn't do that yesterday because the whole day went much differently than I planned. And it started with an SMS or like a text message that I got from Lufthansa, Eurowings, all kind of the same. Eurowings is part of Lufthansa or however you want to look at it. So I got a text message at 1 in the morning saying that my flight had been canceled. And that, of course, is not anything you want to wake up to at 1 in the morning, right? But that's what happened. And it said, follow this link to find out your options. So I pressed on the link. It took me to the Eurowings website. I put in my booking number and my last name, and it said, yes, your flight has been canceled. Please, like it said again, click here to find out your options. I clicked on that, and all that it was showing me was the flight that I already had, and it just said canceled. And the rest of the page was completely blank. Like there wasn't even any like empty lines or anything like that. It was just blank, nothing. So I thought,
that's not really a lot of options.
There was, however, a telephone number listed, and I thought, okay, well, I'm already awake. I might as well try calling the number. Called the number. It said, we are experiencing a high volume of calls. At the moment, you are number 71 in the queue. So I thought, all right, well, that's gonna be a while. And after being on hold for about 15 minutes in the middle of the night, I just decided, this is not a good idea. I just got the text message, so let me just give them some time to work something out. I'm just gonna go back to sleep, and when I wake up in the morning, I bet I'm gonna have an email from them with the flight that I've been rebooked on. That's kind of how it usually works. So Morgan goes back to sleep. When I woke up in the morning, there was no news whatsoever. So I pressed on the link in the app again, took me to the same page where there were no options listed. I called the number again, and at that time I was like number 68 in the queue at the beginning. I also thought, okay, forget this. And I had made plans already with my friends that they were going to take me to the airport in the morning because one of them was going to work and one of them had to take the kids to school. So I just thought, I'll go with her to the airport. And once I'm at the airport, I'm sure that there will be somebody who have a solution for me, although I already was awaiting some kind of chaos. The reason the flight was canceled is because on the day before and on that morning, it had been snowing a lot and raining, and everything had this weird sort of frosty sheet of ice on it, where like the trees are all like white and branches are falling off because they're frozen. That's what it had been like. So obviously that's gonna affect travel. Nobody at the airline can do anything about the weather. When that kind of stuff happens, things get complicated. And when I walked into the airport, my flight wasn't even listed anywhere. Like, it was non-existent. So there was no counter I could go to not check in or whatever. So I did what thousands of other people, well, it probably wasn't thousands, but hundreds of other people did. And I went and I got in the line for Lufthansa customer service. I've learned in situations like this that really, it does not help at all to start like throwing things around, to be loud, to be rude. It doesn't help at all. And I mean, I guess in a way I had an advantage in this situation because I was just trying to get home, and, with the work schedule that I have and the way that I set things up, if I wasn't able to record Sunday Sofatime, it wouldn't be like a huge deal. You know what I mean? Like, there's no babysitter waiting for me to like get home so they can go. There's very little responsibilities riding on whether or not I spend another hour in Munich or 2 hours, or turned out to be almost 9 hours. The consequences attached to that are for me very low. So I know that makes it a little bit easier for me. But the guy who was behind me, after the first 10 minutes of having him behind me in this line, I was already a little bit worked up because he was not happy with the situation, and he was doing everything he could to make sure that everybody around him also understood that he was not happy. I'm talking about things like every other breath doing this. There was also a few of these. And the occasional, oh my God. And not only that, but he was, as Germans do when you're waiting in a line like this, he was standing like right behind me. So every single was right on the back of my neck. And other people would have gotten like really mean, I think, probably in this situation, but I decided to go the exact opposite route, and I thought, I'm gonna brighten up this guy's day and just distract him. So I don't remember exactly what it was we started talking about, but eventually I turned around and made a joke about something, and he actually turned out to be a pretty cool guy. And then after we got into a little bit of a conversation, then a couple people who were behind him started joining in the conversation, and a couple people in front of me joined in the conversation. And after we had all waited in this line for literally probably close to 2 hours together, we had created just this fun little like micro community of people from all over the world, and we just kind of had a good time all together. So that was one pretty cool thing that happened that day. I don't have any numbers or names of these people. We did not exchange Instagrams or anything like that, but it was just nice to be surrounded by fun people in this situation, even though the guy originally was one of the last kind of people I want to have standing directly behind me in a line. Eventually, after waiting in this very slow-moving line for a large amount of time, this is how long I was waiting there up until this point, eventually some people came around and started handing out snacks, which I think was really great. It was bottles of water, like these Tetra packs of water, and then there were either chips, Snickers, or trail mix. And I just think that's great customer service. I don't know where they got this stuff from, but there it was. But I felt sorry for these two women who were coming around with these carts, because people automatically assumed that because they work at the airport that they could also help them in their situation. And as soon as this line of hundreds of people saw them doing that, automatically people were coming out of the line and like surrounding them with questions. And these women were just handing out snacks. And that was another thing that our little group made a joke about, like, how can all these people possibly think that this woman who's handing out snacks is the right person to start complaining to? She's literally here for the peanuts and the water. Give her a break. And after about 2 hours, the line came from the counter where everybody's trying to get to. It made like a short little L, and then it went all the way down one end of the terminal, made a turn, and then came all the way back. And then like a security guy came and sort of announced to most of the line, listen, we have to restructure the line here to help the flow of people in the airport. So please follow me around this way. And he took basically the line that was going like down like this and took it down around a different part of the terminal. And it this is hundreds of people to reorganize. And just after that happened, some actual workers from Lufthansa came out and started asking people, who's flying inside Germany? If you have a flight inside Germany, please come with us. And that was me. I was flying from Munich to Hamburg. So I went with them. I was one of the first people then who managed to get to talk to one of these people. And he said, okay, well, here's the deal. I can tell you right now that there's only a few more flights going to Hamburg today, and they are all full. So the options are, I can put you on a waiting list for the first one. And if you don't make that one, then you'll get on the waiting list for the next one. And if you don't make that one, you get on the waiting list for the next one. And maybe on one of these flights today, you'll be able to get back to Hamburg. The other option is I can give you a train ticket, and then you can go into the city and get on a long distance train up to Hamburg. Or a third option, if you're interested, is I can put you on a flight to Bremen. And Bremen is a city about an hour and a half away from here on the train. And I thought, because here's the thing, because of the travel chaos, the train travel was also a cluster beep. And I was already at the airport, so I figured train travel is probably not the best idea because there's no way of knowing if I'm going to get in the 45-minute train from the airport into the city to go to the main train station. I could see in the app that the trains were running, and I could also see in the app that they said on every train to Hamburg, we are expecting an extremely high volume of passengers. So I thought, I don't want to have to take the train because I definitely don't want to be standing in the middle of carriages for 5.5 hours on the way to Hamburg. So I said, you know what? I think I would appreciate if there are actual seats available on the flight to Bremen. Can you just put me on the flight to Bremen? And then when I get there, I'll figure out how I'm going to get to Hamburg. At least I'll be closer than I am here. So he took the boarding pass that I had. No, actually, I didn't have an actual boarding pass. He just wrote down the information from my app, like my ticket number and my reservation number. And then he went into an office that had, I'm trying to figure out how to describe it. There was like a wall of frosted glass that had a door in it. And I'm assuming that what was on the other side was an office with computers in it, but I didn't actually see inside. He said, wait here, I'll see what I can do. He went through that door, and then I never saw him again. I waited there and I waited and I waited, and I saw my group in the main line, like moving on and getting closer and closer to the counter. And occasionally we'd make eye contact and wave at each other. And I waited there for probably 20 minutes, maybe it was a half an hour. And all of a sudden I got a beep from my phone, and it was another text message from Lufthansa saying that I had been rebooked on a flight to Hamburg, leaving at boarding starts at 1:50 in the afternoon. And at this time, it was getting close to noon. And so because I got that on my phone, I just figured, okay, well, this guy who took my information, while he was in the computer, he must have seen there are seats on a flight to Hamburg. I'll just put him on this. And it wasn't that I was listed as wait list or standby. I had an actual seat, 14C. So I was like, cool. I went back over to my group really quickly and I told them, so everybody, it looks like I've got a flight here. So, thanks for being so cool and making this experience not so awful. It was cool hanging out with you, and maybe we will run into each other on the other side of the terminal. I went through security with no problem, went to Dean and David. I don't know, do you have Dean and David where you are? It's a place where they have like fresh salads and sandwiches and stuff like that, kind of sort of healthy-ish food. Went and got myself a nice salad at Dean and David because I had time. I walked through the duty free, tried very hard not to mess up any expensive serums, and shortly past 1, I went over to the gate. I think it was G43 because that's when boarding was supposed to begin. I've now been at the airport for 6 hours. It's about 20 past 1 in the afternoon. And now, I apparently have a seat on this flight where boarding is supposed to start at 1:40, so in like 20 minutes. We'll see. It hasn't been, other than just like standing around and waiting, it hasn't really been that stressful for me. The people that I was waiting in line with in the huge line this morning, they were pretty cool after we all got to know each other, let's say that. And I'm sure I'm gonna have told you more about them and tell you more about them in front of the red sofa, because as I'm standing here now in the airport, I already know this is what Sofatime is going to be about. Here's a little update. We were supposed to be boarding about 5 minutes ago, and they just made an announcement that because the crew doesn't have the stairs yet, I guess this is gonna be the kind of boarding where we have to walk across the tarmac and then go up a stairs into the machine, into the jet. They made the announcement that they don't have the stairs. So we're still waiting for the stairs, and she said, honestly, I have no way to inform you of how long it's gonna take, so please just be patient and I'll let you know when we're ready to begin. They started calling out groups to board the plane, and I thought, all right, I'm getting on this plane, but there was a complication, and I'm gonna tell you about that right after this commercial break. Did you get one? What was it about? Write it in the comments below, please. Let me remind you, I got to the airport around 7:35 that morning. My flight was supposed to leave shortly past 10, and now here it is already like 1:30, probably 1:45 in the afternoon, so I'm already delayed around 3 hours. And like I said, this is a weather-related delay. It's not because the airlines made any mistakes. These things kind of just happen. They call out my boarding group. I go up to the turnstile, I scan my boarding pass, and the thing lights up red and beeps and says, please see a Lufthansa ground crew member. So I go over to the window. There's 3 people in front of me who I guess were waiting to find out if they're on the wait list. And she begins, after everything has finished, there's nobody else going into the plane, she starts letting these people onto the plane, and then it's my turn to talk to her, and I said, I have this pass, and when I scan it, it turns red and says that I should see one of you, so I don't know what's going on. She takes it, scans it, and says, well, this is odd. You're booked on a flight to Bremen. You're not supposed to be going to Hamburg. And I was like, oh, really? And I have to be completely honest here. I'm sure that I'm not alone in this situation. When you're this close to a goal, like I was, I thought, I have a boarding pass for this flight with a seat. Technically, I should be on this plane already. And I don't know, when you're in a situation like that, so close to your goal, sometimes it gets really easy to forget certain details. I know it's lying. You shouldn't lie in situations like this. But I simply said to her, that's odd because I had a flight originally booked to Hamburg. It was canceled this morning, and I all of a sudden got this text message that now I'm on this flight to Hamburg at 1:40. So I don't know. I didn't tell her about this guy who took my information and then disappeared, because technically that never even happened, because I never saw him again. I never had any information about a flight to Bremen. So how would I even know that I mean, that flight was a totally different flight number, leaving from a different gate, and I didn't have a boarding pass. I had no information about it. So to me, at that time, it didn't even exist. I didn't know about it until I was the last person getting on this flight to Hamburg, and she scanned my boarding pass and said, no, this is wrong. You have a flight to Bremen. Huh? So I chose at this moment to ignore the fact that I did know a little bit about a flight to Bremen, because technically I didn't really know anything about it. And by the way, I'm just realizing here in the time that I was gone that Marcus was here, because now Marcus is gone. He bought a huge thing of Christmas candy, and it's right over here. Candy. As always, I was very nice to this woman, and I just said, well, you know, to me it looks like I'm booked on this flight, so I don't understand what's the deal. And she was also, I could tell that she had been through a lot that day already, as I think anybody working at the airport was. So I was very nice and very patient with her, and I just said to her, listen, if there's any way I could still get on this flight, that would be really great, because I'm trying to get home to Hamburg, and it seems to me like I should be on this flight. And she was clicking through the computer, and she said, yeah, well, I'm trying to move you over from the flight to Bremen to this flight, and the computer's not letting me, and I have to close this gate. And she said, so please just wait a second, and we'll see if we can get anything done, but I don't think it's going to work out. I have to close the gate now. And I thought, okay, then it is like it is. Oh, and I totally forgot. I have to go back in the story. Sorry, you guys. Tangent. After the line was moved from going one way and back through the terminal to going the other way and back to the terminal, somebody left their bag sitting there, and they had to full on cordon off that area of the airport and call the bomb squad. And this was somebody who was still there. And I know that he was still there because we saw him. And I wonder if he has to pay the bill for this like special service unit that came, because they literally came I don't have to explain to you what the bomb unit is. I was surprised that they didn't evacuate the terminal, but I think it's because they had a dog go smell it, and the dog didn't, make his mark or whatever, or say, this is something dangerous. So it was just about waiting for somebody to come and claim it. And the guy showed up, but I thought, how can you go this long and not realize you don't have your suitcase with you? I mean, we're talking about a good half an hour. Anyways, back to me trying to get on this flight that I had a boarding pass for. The woman working at the check-in, or at the gate, she made the announcement, final call for all passengers for flight 2068 or whatever it was from Munich to Hamburg. The gate will be closing. There were 2 more people who came. They scanned their tickets. They went in, and then there were 2 people who were waiting there with me, who were on the waiting list, basically. I had the opportunity to be, but I wasn't on the waiting list. Like I said, I had a boarding pass with a seat number. That is not waiting list. That's having a seat on the flight. And the airport is super crowded. Just every place in this airport was crowded. There's people sitting all over the place, sitting on the floor and things like that. And so the next thing that happened was sort of weird to me. She told me, I'm sorry, I don't have time to organize this for you, and the gate is now closed. So please just wait here. Let me finish closing the gate, and then I'll see if I can help you. So she did something in the computer. I could see, these little scanners that you have to put your boarding pass or your phone on to get through. They changed colors, and she was on the phone and gave some kind of permission or whatever, I don't know. And then another guy showed up and said, can I still board? And she said, sorry, the gate's closed. And he's like, yeah, but I have a boarding pass. And then she went back in the computer, opened up the gate again to let him on the flight. And I thought, okay, this is kind of weird. And not only that, but a guy who was sitting on the floor behind me, who is not even on the flight, he even said to her, he's not part of the situation at all, but he said something like, well, that's kind of unfair. Didn't you just tell him that he can't board the flight because you have to close the gate, and then somebody comes after him and he can board? What's going on, lady? And I was like, okay,
It's okay. I'll take care of this.
And I kind of felt bad for her at that moment, but at the same time, I also thought,
Yeah, what he said.
Luckily, she did find a way to do whatever she had to do in the computer to take me off of the flight to Bremen and put me onto this flight to Hamburg. So I was literally the last person going down the jetway, getting onto the bus, and then getting into the flight, and I made it onto the plane. But unfortunately, that's not the end of this story, because once I was on the flight, like in the plane, already however many hours later than I was supposed to leave, and that this flight was even supposed to leave, and part of that was because they were waiting for me, they announced that we can't leave our parking position because the crew who is supposed to come finish up whatever has to happen on the outside of the airplane, like putting the bags in and closing up the doors and everything, they weren't there. So we had to wait for them. Then, after they were there, they said, now we are technically ready to go, but we can't leave because of snow on the runway. So they have to close the runway in order to remove the snow. That could take between 45 minutes and 2 hours. And we're just gonna keep you updated. And I realize also that the story is getting very long now, so I'm just gonna wrap it up and say that like an hour or so went by. Finally, we got to leave the gate. We went through the de-icing, and this was weird because I've seen de-icing before, and this was like a different kind of de-icing. It literally looked like somebody was puking down the side of the plane. I mean, look at that. Doesn't that look like some like gigantic monster puked on the plane? And after the de-icing, we still sat there for another, I want to say half an hour or something. And it wasn't until this time that we actually took off. So I made it back to Hamburg. I thought I was going to be here yesterday before noon, and I ended up getting here around dinner time, and that was my day. And these kind of things can happen, and it made me a little bit worried for our upcoming flight to Florida, because like I said, I had it really easy. I was just on my way home. Nobody was waiting for me. I didn't have any connecting flights, no big, huge responsibilities that were gonna, suffer or have to be canceled or whatever for me being late. But if I'm flying to Florida or flying someplace else and have a connection and I'm late because of something like this, of course it's frustrating. I totally get that. But I'm just glad that I was able to stay calm and sort of just roll with the punches, and that's what I always suggest for you too. So now will come the time on Sunday Sofa Time where I comment on your comments live on air. In last week's Sunday Sofa Time, we talked about this guy who fell off the Carnival Valor and was rescued 20 hours later. I showed you clips from the interview with him where you can hear his side of the story and also see footage of the Coast Guard rescuing him. That's what we talked about last week in Sunday Sofa Time, and these comments are on that video. The first one is from Merit Sit Mat. They write, bless his heart. There's a difference between passing out and blacking out though. He probably could have tread water in a blackout and just not remembered. And yeah, that's true. I didn't think of that. In the interview, he says he was passed out and when he woke up, the ship was gone. But that's him sticking to his story that he hadn't been drinking too much. But what Merritt is trying to say here, I can tell you that I have also been so drunk, unfortunately, that I know I've done things that I have zero recollection of doing. Usually it's getting home. Like I remember being at the bar or at the friend's house and I remember being home, but I don't remember the taxi ride or getting to the train or anything like that. I know it happened because A and C, but B, it's gone. I think he probably was blackout drunk, which would explain how he could have tread water for so long, but not have any recollection of it. Good point. Another thing I want to talk about, and I'm not going to pick out a certain comment about this because there were several saying, doesn't the cruise line have footage of what happened? And I am pretty positive that they do have footage of what happened, but for all kinds of legal reasons and also probably to protect themselves, they're not like publishing that footage. But I don't think that the cruise line doesn't know exactly how he managed to get from the ship into the water. There are two other comments I want to mention here or go through because they are critical comments, and I think it's important to not always just focus on the good comments. The first one is from Jenny Holt. Jenny writes, you accusing a stranger of attempting suicide? How odd. I hope that you never are in that situation. And Jenny, I'm assuming Jenny is not going to be watching another one of my videos. How can I go about this? In the video, I went through a list of possible reasons why this could have happened. The reasons I listed were he was doing something foolish, like had climbed over the railing or was standing on top of something. I and many other people in the comments speculated that he maybe was trying to pee into the ocean because he told his family, I'm going to use the bathroom, and then next thing you know, he's in the water. So that is one possibility. Another possibility that I only mentioned in the video was maybe he purposely jumped in the water because sometimes people do things like that too. I also mentioned in the video, because of course it's possible that he might even watch the video, that I hope that if he is dealing with some self-destructive thoughts, that I hope that he can take this opportunity to get some help. So Jenny, I'm not sure what it is that rubbed you the wrong way. I don't feel like I was in any sort of way making fun of the possibility that that is why he did it. I lean way more towards the possibility that he was just really drunk and made a stupid decision, and that led to him falling into the ocean. So Jenny, if you are watching again, and if you still feel like I was in the wrong for saying what I said and the way that I said it, I really am sorry, because of course that is not something that anybody should be joking about. Final comment is also a critical one from Danessa Howe or Howie. Danessa writes, I think you've done nothing but make fun of this guy. You probably are a bully in real life, and obviously you don't believe in God. Well, the God I serve can hold someone up. Hopefully someday you will know him. I bet if this guy was gay, black, Asian, or any other nationality, you wouldn't be making fun, and people would be outraged, as they should. But seems to be okay to make fun of anyone from the South or anyone that fishes or hunts. That's totally wrong. Okay, there's a lot of assumptions and broad generalizations in Danessa's comment here. First of all, I grew up around people who were fishing and hunting all the time. So if you think that I just automatically that makes me feel like these people are somehow less than me, then I would be referring to like a large part of my family. And whether or not I believe in God or the God that I believe in, Danessa, that's my business. I'm sorry to bring this up again, but I have a whole story about my connection to God and a really strange thing that happened to me that has to do with whether or not I think there is a God, and you can read about it in my book. I know that sounds really stupid, but it's true. There's a story about that in here. And you assuming that I would be protecting this person if they were gay, black, Asian, or other nationality, I'm sorry, that's just not true. Trust me, there are plenty of gay, black, Asian, and other nationalities who also do really stupid things and end up in situations like this guy on the ship. So Danessa, I don't know what to say. Yes, in a way, I was poking a little bit fun about him, but on the other hand, if he was not interested in being a part of social commentary, then he probably should not have gone on one of the most popular news shows in the country to tell his side of the story, which obviously is not the whole story. That doesn't mean that he should automatically be ridiculed. I understand that, but I think he opened up the door for people to comment on the situation, and I feel like more or less that's what I was doing. And altogether, I usually talk about things in a very sarcastic and comedic way on this channel, and that's why I call it the very unofficial travel guides, to let everybody know you can't really take everything seriously what I say here anyways. All right, everybody, it's like almost Christmas time and I just spit. In fact, next Sunday is Christmas. You better finish up that last minute Christmas shopping. I hope that you are not too stressed. Remember to take some time for yourself this Christmas season. Don't overdo it. And I'll see you back here in front of the red sofa in a week. Bye-bye.